Hi, thanks for joining us. I'm Sandra Lummis from FairTradeWorks, our very first FairTradeWorks webinar. So proud to be here today, joined by our founder and president, Jim Perkins of FairTradeWorks.
Hi.
And Tony Ionetti from DLC Mortgage Matters. Good morning.
Good morning.
We first want to explain, gentlemen, how this concept started and why we're doing this webinar today for the viewers, and then we'll get into the construction financing end of things and kind of our first show and the topic. We have lots lined up, lots of questions even from some of the people from our Ladies Construction Night, as well as just people that have been emailing in advance from our newsletter database saying, I want to know this. So just to start off and why we're doing this and FairTradeWorks answering so many of your questions, we often get emails through the day asking individual personalized questions, and I know, Jim, you get this out on the road as well, from people who just say, I want to be empowered, I want to know more about the process and more about FairTradeWorks and our unique platform. So what we thought we'd do is just be able to be a little more efficient and be able to allow and share these answers with the general public. So that's why we're doing this on a monthly basis now. And while we're starting off really simple, gentlemen, and today it's not interactive with live questions, what we're hoping to be able to do is eventually you'll be able to join us and be able to interject during the questions. So it'll get a little more exciting as we grow along or grow together. But we've got, like I said, lots of information to get started with today. So Jim, first year been celebrated now on August 29th with Ladies Construction Night, which was very successful, and our birthday. How would you say Vancouver's accepted FairTradeWorks platform in the new construction industry?
I believe we've had a strong response. Like as you just mentioned, we've been alive 1 year. We've obviously marketed heavily and put our new platform out there. But and we've had a huge response from the marketplace, from consumers, from our peers, from our vendors, from our contracts and trades. But you know, it's such a new concept, and I think our biggest hurdle is, as you know, just people relating us back to something that they know, right? But the thing that I think we're proud of most here at FairTradeWorks is simply that people are just asking us, why hasn't this been done before, right? So that really tells us that we're on the right track for growth and for forward movement and supplying consumers with something that they really need in the construction industry, right? So so far so good, and we're on track. But you know, again, our biggest hurdle is just the sheer education of people understanding that what we're doing is something completely different, out of the box to what they've known for the last 50, 100 years in this country. Right? So.
Now I have a few people joining us today that I know haven't been at any of our events, perhaps haven't had time to go through the entire website. If you had just a minute to wrap up our biggest differential with FairTradeWorks and something, the traditional construction company, how would you say that FairTradeWorks is different?
I think our biggest differential is that we're third party. You know, we're not a construction company. You know, we're a third party advisory brand, construction brand that works to create a platform that the consumers and the existing contracts and trades can work on. You know, our biggest differential, I think, is that we work again with the consumers, and each person, when they consult us for a construction project, they're saddled with partnered with a construction advisor who is a young, dynamic, very well educated construction professional who sticks with them through the whole process. You know, right from the beginning. We have all sorts of clients that some are very savvy in the processes, some are not at all. So we're set up and trained for all of that. So having that one partner through the whole process is huge, right? And not going out to turn a profit or try and get their project. It's to basically be their advocate and guide them through the huge structure that is the construction process. You know, we advise them on whether they need architects, engineers, how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost, how much money they need, and all these different things. So the advisor is definitely one huge differential. Number two, I would believe, is that again we trying to create market value and value for the consumer for the first time ever in construction history. So we work with the consumers up front. We tie together a scope package, and we actually put that out to tender to our 400 to 500 already approved contracts and trades. And we don't just approve them by very basic means. You know, we go into their history very deeply and make sure that they all are certainly qualified to perform on our platform and represent our brand out there in the marketplace. So advisors, we tender everything out, so we know, when we present our submissions to our consumers, we can guarantee that they are getting market value, and it's the people that are competing to get their project are all on the same level and platform, so they know that when we actually go into production in the construction process that we are building quality at a fair market value, and that's the whole premise of our company.
If I can just stop you right there. So fair market value, when you're saying because people are actually, or these trades are actually competing for your work, unlike me as an individual only having the leverage to call 3 or 4 people out of the yellow pages, suddenly that work goes out to everyone that you've qualified or pre-vetted, and they're actually trying to fight for that scope of work.
Absolutely, they're competing for it. You know, they're not going to do it for. They know they have to turn a profit, so they as a construction company should know their margins, what they want to achieve, and they come in. And when everybody's competing on the same platform, it starts to push out and more even market value. Because you know, in the history of construction, people get 3 bids, and one is $5, one's $500, one's $5,000. And there's nothing to equate to that. And people do the old scenarios or pick the middle bid, which is just a completely ridiculous scenario because it doesn't equate to anything. They're just trying to go in for the safety of the middle ground, you know. And I know lots of people that submit low quotes that have low overs, do an outstanding job, and guys that do high quotes that have been in business for a year, right? So it's completely erratic, it's completely unregulated. So we are out to make a huge change to that. So we do all the work for the consumer. They don't have to do the research. They don't have to go on the internet. They don't have to ask their neighbours. They come to us. We're independent. We work for them to get them the best deal possible, maintaining the quality, maintaining the safety, and of course maintaining you know, the timelines which we lay out in the contracts at the beginning, and of course protecting their money through the whole process. So there's no overruns, there's no unforeseens, there's you know, they're not going to get sidetracked by huge cost overruns, which is obviously the biggest stress in the construction process today.
So you have somebody watching your back basically throughout the entire process.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which, Tony, I know I'm going to throw you into the mix here at this point because this made sense, this platform. You said you saw FairTradeWorks commercials on TV and went, aha! There was that aha moment where you went, this makes sense to me. Can you just explain that to everybody?
Absolutely. I was nearing the end of my own renovation project, and as I'm completing this project, which was a complete nightmare, I see a FairTradeWorks commercial. And so I saw it, and I took a moment and said, gee, that sounded interesting, and I backed up the PVR box and watched it again. I'm like, great concept. And so I really felt compelled to reach out to Jim and have a chat. And when he did meet with Jim and his team, it felt right.
So just explain, you made an appointment with Jim, you both met. What was your reaction to Tony saying, hey, I think there's something here. Your company makes sense to me, and I can offer construction financing?
Yeah, on the first encounter, I think Tony reached out to me, and we got together, and first of all, we kind of connected on the same level as we kind of have the both premise of we're both in the the customer service industry, and we both had the same ideals of representing the client first and providing exactly what they need. So that was the instant connection. But of course, being in the construction business ourselves and building construction projects, money is always involved, of course. So, and as you know, large projects, they need construction financing. 80% of large construction projects that we do are financed some way, whether it be a bank loan, pulling equity out of the land of the existing project, you name it. So it made complete sense for me to spend some time with Tony and make sure it was a fit that we could work together to offer our consumers a one-stop shop. So again, we bring in them, and again, Tony does the same premise as us. He packages up their needs and he works for them to get them the best deal possible, showcase all the possible scenarios inside and outside of banking lending system, and just basically get them the best deal and make sure they're comfortable through the whole process, and that he's again by their side from signing the deal through the construction process and closing it off, and he's there right till the end and at the end of the successful project.
So you were talking about pre-vetting trades, and that was so important to you to be working with trades and have trades that when the work's going out, you trust them and that your advisors can work with them. Seems like you did the same thing with Tony, that you guys worked and trusted each other and thought out how the process would work. And I'm proud that we're sitting here months later saying we now can tell everyone that IDETA Group is going to be allowing these financial services to be working together. So that's kind of our newest wing under FairTradeWorks realm. Tony being somebody that Jim feels he can trust under that brand to be able to offer the financing. Share with us, Tony, how this is going to work for homeowners along with Jim's services. So somebody calls up, say me, I want a big bathroom reno, but I say, I think I might need some construction financing. How are you going to fit into that?
Well, the first step is to have a conversation with the client. So it's a matter of sitting down, having an honest chat about what they're trying to accomplish and what they have to accomplish it. From that moment, it's taking that information away and tailoring a solution to meet their needs. Although it sounds simple, there's a little bit more to it than that. But for the most part, it's going to be fact-finding and solution presenting.
Where do you think that the traditional banking system has let people down during either new home builds or home construction?
Well, that list could be huge.
Right.
You know, I think for the most part, people don't like asking for money, and the process, whether it's it's called intimidating, cumbersome, of whatever you'd want to term it, for the most part, it's difficult for people to go through the processes that, for the most part, they don't understand. Why these processes exist.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be very intimidating. The difference is, hopefully, they're thinking of me as a trusted friend, to be able to sit across from somebody, understand what they're trying to accomplish, and prevent true, real financial solutions to help them get there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's similar with the construction process too, where I've been in the industry here for 10 years and another decade previously around the world, where we meet consumers, and because of the industry and what's happened in the last 50, 100 years, there's just that standoff. So it's like the consumer against the contractor, right? Where we're trying to break down those barriers, abolish all that, and say we're actually on your side. We're here to open the book about construction, make it all very clear and transparent, and work with you to make this project a success. And one of our mandates is we're not about building what you want to have built, but we believe that every construction project should have a return on investment. So we're there to advise you where we're going to produce what you want for your family. We're going to make sure the budget's right, and we guarantee the budget, we guarantee the market value. We work with Tony to make sure that the funds are in place and they jive with the construction process. And I believe once those barriers are dropped and people actually realize that we're actually on the consumer side and we're representing them, then people's mindsets change, and the whole process is completely different. It's more enjoyable, so much more trust, and I believe the end product is just built around a good, positive energy rather than this big standoff of like, are you screwing me, or what's going on here, all this kind of disconnect and fragmentation, which has been the industry for, like I said, 50, 100 years here in North America.
I'm going to tell you, when you both came to me to explain the process, the thing that appealed to me, not only as a homeowner, but somebody that is a busy life, I don't want to be the experts in either of your fields, was being able to have one-stop shop, so I don't have to go to my bank separately and explain the whole process again. You obviously have been part of the construction experience now and been able to visit with some of the advisors on these consults. What's the reaction been thus far? It's kind of like, do I have to actually go to a bank or another office?
Well, Sandra, my experience so far has been people are jaw-dropped. They're getting information quickly, the right answers with the right time. And that's kind of what you get with Dominion Lending Centers, is not only the options and, for the fact that we're working to have banks compete for your money, but you're getting experience and the answers that you need right away. Rather than going through a process and waiting 3 to 4 weeks to determine what you might be able to do, we can tell you right on the spot what your options are and what those are going to look like.
Do you think that the similarity in both of your industries and then merging together is the same, is that we talk about convenience, that one-stop feeling and somebody having your back that can just efficiently get something done and take away the stress, but the other thing is the confidence in it that once they do understand the system entirely, which we both understand is going to be hard to get there at first, because people still want to compare you to a project manager or a traditional construction company, and why aren't you a bank? Why should I go outside of what my mom and dad and grandparents and historically everybody has gone through? Once they grasp it and how efficient, cost-effective the whole thing, like you said, it's almost that too good to be true feeling.
Sorry to jump in, but I think in Tony's industry and my industry, that's the common ground, is that people are so standoffish about us, and I think that's why people, again, today do so much research, and they're frantically trying to gain information and get some kind of leverage against when they meet a contractor, so they can almost try and catch them out, or they feel as if they're in the know, right? But couple that with like a travel agency, where if you go to book a holiday, people aren't prepared. They go to the travel agents. The travel agent gets them the best deal. They offer solutions, and it's a really fun thing. And and they're spending money to get. Sure, it's an annual holiday, but it's still not an investment. It's still nothing as serious as construction. But they're still spending a substantial amount of money. But in that scenario, when you're having fun and those walls aren't put up, it's a completely different mindset and experience. And people are just like, yeah, it looks fantastic. You've done all your due diligence. You've sent me on this trip. You've organised this, and the check is signed, and everybody's happy. Like in our industries, that's the standoff where history has created this lock, which we're completely trying to abolish, where people can call us, like Tony says, like my clients are friends of ours, and we make it a success. We're transparent, and then they partner with us for the rest of their lives in the construction and finance sectors. And because there are great returns on investment to be made, there's so many options that they don't even know about. Once they meet us and work with us, then it's a completely different operation, and today it's been hugely successful.
Well, we were talking earlier before we started the camera rolling today about construction options, and if you're like me, I've always just had a traditional mortgage and didn't understand investing and being able to use my property, my equity for some of the renovations before Tony came along and introduced some of these great solutions or solutions that are different alternatives that people are maybe getting off the traditional path with. Can you just explain maybe some of the options that people aren't familiar when it comes to either new home builds or renovations in the city?
Absolutely. And you're right, there is a number of options to people, and those options really entail accessing money. And those options can range from open facilities, re-advanceable facilities such as lines of credits, to something a little bit more sophisticated or strategically matching their construction financing needs for a project. And that can be done on a percentage completion or through periodic draws. So a number of different options to help clients access the money they need through vehicles and venues that match what they're looking for or what they need.
So you were even saying, you find people using credit cards for construction draws sometimes. They'll use high interest because they don't want to ask for money, or we feel ignorant. You and I talked about, I feel stupid sometimes about money. I don't get it. And so if I have somebody like you that I can go, Tony, help me.
Well, you're right. You've touched on something where there is a huge growing amount of debt from facilities such as credit cards, lines of credits, and for the most part, the big thing is, or the big question is why? Why are people accumulating debt on credit cards?
Because it's
versus,
easy.
You're right, it's the path of least resistance. So it is much easier to use your line of credit, to use your credit card to buy the kitchen appliances or whatever the case may be, than going into the bank and saying, I don't have the money and I need money to do the project.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather avoid doing that if I'm going to be treated as if I'm second class,
Mm-hmm.
or go through an intimidated process, or be treated as if I shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
So the purpose for us is not to judge the client, give them the right information, and have them and have us build trust that they're going to get the right product and services.
Right.
Because I've had instances where consumers come to me for a construction process, say a large bathroom renovation. They've engaged us, they own a nice home, they've got tons of equity in the property, they've used a credit card to pay for the operation, which is almost it's a faux pas, and it's almost a lifestyle thing. So they've created a investment in their home space by building this new bathroom. It's actually a return on investment, so that their equity in their home and their land is now worth more. But they've paid for it by racking up a credit card, but now they've gridlocked themselves by now not having liquid capital to live a lifestyle. Whether they've come to us, financed it through their land and their house, paid for that, got a way better rate, and then still had liquid capital available to live as they please. And then the upgrade in the construction was a return on investment. So they're actually 10 steps ahead of the game, rather than actually leveraging themselves and gridlocking to the point where they've racked up credit cards. Now when they go to the banks, their loans are already higher, and they're in a worse situation where all of a sudden they're in a tight spot, and it's a critical situation where now they might be borrowing money subprime and paying huge interest on it, where if they just talk to us, the outcome would have been the same for the construction process, but they would have come out the other side with their investment and returns on that, rather than locking themselves in a corner. So
It's so interesting to hear when you guys do know so much, and that's why I'm glad we're doing this.
Well, I meet so many people that have great wealth in real estate, and they feel broke, or they feel they're going to get declined.
Oh yeah.
And it's the complete opposite. They have easy access to money. In fact, they probably have easier access to money than most people.
Right. But once again, it's that base of knowledge that you can help them with.
Sure,
Yeah, exactly. And perception. You're right. We get fearful of money, and like you said, being judged.
Fearful of banks.
Fearful of banks, for sure. Well, yeah, exactly. I just wanted to touch quickly on, you talked about construction draws. I know you were both working on a solution the other day for a client, and I heard that you can actually arrange, so I don't have to borrow the money before I need it, which was also something interesting, because if you go for your mortgage, here's your lump sum, and that's it. I'm responsible for the interest for that right away. You're even saying, no, I can customize it, so if you don't need that money, you're not paying for it yet. So it's really interesting breakdown how you can personalize that for my individual needs.
You're absolutely right. It's one of those benefits that clients can access, and that is being able to tailor the financing to meet the cash flow needs of a project. Because you're right, when you start a project, it might be a 12-month or an 18-month period of time, and cash flow, you don't, whatever the cost of the project is not required up front. It's required in most cases through draws or percentage completion. So it makes absolute sense to match your financing needs based on that.
But once again, as a homeowner who doesn't know anything about construction, and then I'm going to a separate office for a bank, that's hard for me to relate all that information. You're right here, you know what I need because you're listening to Jim, and I'm talking to you in front of him, so
And
we
Sandra,
can
in
work
many
together.
cases, the client will walk into a bank and they'll sit across from somebody. They'll have a suit and tie on, most likely, and the client will talk about their needs, and they'll probably whip open a book and say, well, policy says this, and this, Mr. Smith. And that, for the most part, will have the client leave the bank, because they don't want to go through that structured. One thing fits everybody.
Right.
One solution for everybody. People want some customization.
So how is that going to differ with our lending? How are we able to be more flexible and customize things rather than the bank?
Because we make the decisions.
Okay, that's a simple answer, and I like it. So,
Toronto does it. We do it.
So as I mentioned earlier, gentlemen, we wanted to get to some of the individual questions that were emailed to us for our viewers. Let's start with Susan, because I thought that Susan's question, thank you Susan, I know you're watching, was a very good question about competitive rates. So
Okay.
Tony, I'm going to direct this to you for construction financing. Are you able to compete with the bank rates when it comes to personalized home or business construction financing that you're offering?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, DLC is based on the model that we get banks competing for your business. And for the most part, there's not too many mortgages I will process for a client where there's not 3 options for them. This lender, this bank, then an alternative lender. So people do and will have access to the most competitive market rates that exist. And I would confidently say better rates than what's out there in the marketplace. In terms of construction financing, it's a specialized product. Rates, again, are going to be as competitive as anybody's going to get in the lending landscape. And those can range from anywhere from 2.6 to 9.6. So it's a big spectrum, but the thing I can promise is that they're going to get the best rate that's available at the time.
And how fast would they find out about the rate that you're able to offer and if they're accepted?
For the most part, there are some situations that are much more complicated than
Right.
Than the average, and of course those take a little bit more time. But for the most part, considering the availability or assuming the availability of information, i.e. the client can provide what they do or produce what they say they have or don't have, for the most part, 24 hours.
Okay. So it's not having to go off, like you said, to corporate headquarters, get approved by a board, bounce?
No.
Okay.
I can talk on behalf of my clients that I've introduced Tony to like recently 3 different scenarios, one being an architect doing a large upgrade on his single family home, one being a young professional who's got a very successful brewing company who's wants to buy land and build a new brewing facility, one guy that's nearing retirement in South Richmond who's got tons of equity, lots of property, with professionals. Like, these are savvy people, they know numbers, they know business, and they've come to me first for the construction process, but then I brought Tony in because it's finance and make it jive through looking at their estate, looking at their finances, looking at competitive rates. They've been wowed by what he's been able to produce and the options he's able to produce, and ideas that, like, these guys have been 50, 60 years in business and savvy professionals, and Tony just has this up his fingertips. 25 years in the game, it's his business and it's all he knows, right? So my point is the feedback I've been getting from what Tony has been able to work for these people has been fantastic, and plus the service he brings and the friendly service that comes as a package. It's huge plus. Right?
Yeah, and there's no magic wand.
Right.
But there's usually always a solution. Whether it's a solution that's going to work, don't know. But for the most part, there will be solutions and options and choice. And for the most part, that's what most people are looking for.
And one thing that I know, this is again feedback from my clients, is if it doesn't work first time, try again. Right? you've tried something and then, well, this doesn't quite work, so you come back with another solution, right? Just being that solution-based guy with this wealth of knowledge, it's just, so I mean, my construction processes, we'll try this, if that doesn't work, there's always an end product that suits all that we can work on, you know?
I think that's the key point, though. You're working for the clients, which, sorry, but most banks, I don't feel that way right now when I'm going in to ask something. I have to go on their hours, which isn't always working for my business, and they're not coming to my home and working with my construction professional, and I think that's what's kind of unique about this whole service, too. Okay, I'm going to put you both to work now because Bridget has a serious question here. Bridget, this one's for you. She says her parents who live in Shaughnessy have a huge home that needs major renovations, and she put major in parentheses. She said, she asks FairTradeWorks, what would you propose to help our family get our parents' home back to being livable for our parents? Please note they have special needs now and they're both in wheelchairs. We as the kids have to pay for this as they have very little income besides their pension. So this is a two-pronged question here. Let's start with the making the home livable, a big home obviously it sounds like in Shaughnessy, and having to kind of transform it into...
Sure. Yeah, tons of options. It's kind of a broad range question, but it's funny because recently we've been getting a lot of this stuff where we've been involved corporately through FairTradeWorks in buying single-family homes to develop on the west side, and it triggered something that we were doing as well as having consumers come to us about solutions, where we've been, you know, as a developer and a builder, we've been buying single-family homes, developing them, selling for profit, but we've just started a program that Tony and I have both been working on where we partner with the existing homeowner and consumer, work with them in the huge equity they already have in their land, where the house might be run down, but they have huge wealth in their estate. And we actually work with them to develop a new single-family home. So whether that be, and because people are always, when we send to a couple of little cautious, well, how much is it going to cost me? What will upfront cost? All these things. Well, we do. There's no upfront cost. There's no payments. We work with them. We simply profit from the labor and materials, and the existing estate owners profit from the profit that the developer would have got from the development. So we work with them. We get the whole thing through City Hall. That they finance the whole thing, we build it, and then we actually hand that product back over to the existing estate owners so they can either sell it, and the product is very liquid and high-end home, so they can either sell it or they can re-engage and move back dwell back in this new single-family home, whether it be for another 5-10 years or whatever, but it allows them to have options, because they used to be stuck with a house that's not suited to their needs, tons of equity tied up in their land, but their only option to really unload that is to sell to a developer.
Right.
So
at a fraction of the cost.
At the land value,
right.
But there's a huge upside in this market and in markets with unforeseeable futures. So developers buy the land, all these carrying costs through the whole thing, they develop a new house and sell for a substantial profit. There's lots of developers make a lot of money. So we say, well, let's empower the existing homeowners, bring our expertise to the table. We get a construction deal out of it, and we love to build houses, and we love to have exposure on the west side. That's what we're here for, and service our clients. So we get that out of the deal, and the existing homeowner gets a huge cash out at the end. You know, for example, one of the houses that we purchased corporately on West 26th, the cash out would be $500,000 in 13 months. Huge, it's monumental.
And I mean, these are the kids, they're saying we don't have a lot of money to start this project, how can you come in and help them?
Well, that's easy.
Oh, that's easy.
That's easy.
There
That's
you
an
go,
easy
Bridget,
one.
that's easy.
You know, easy from the perspective of, it sounds like there's a lot of equity in the property. So it would be, you know, again, I'm not sure the level of financing required, but for the most part, it doesn't sound like anything that would be complicated. So, yeah, clients can easily access the equity in the property. Use that equity that they've taken out to pay for the construction services, and you can even have the equity look after the equity. So, you know, have a structured repayment where clients don't necessarily need to have the traditional monthly payment come out of their bank account. So lots of good solutions, but one where, again, don't pay for it. You know, the children shouldn't have to pay for it. Let the equity in the property pay for it, and that can be done really easily and really cheaply.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for joining us. We know how busy you are. Our next webinar is going to be October 16th. That's a Wednesday again at 2 p.m. If you'd like to join us, please email us at contactus@fairtradeworks.biz. You can also stay up to date with all of our latest happenings on our Facebook page, as well as Twitter account. And if you'd really like to stay up to date with the latest on your cell phone, we have a new WebLink app. All you have to do to download it, and it gives us directions, our phone number. We're like only one click away with all of our latest happenings. It is FairTradeWorks.tel. Download it from FairTradeWorks.tel, and once again, that's a really easy thing to have and easy access. So have a great day. Until then, everyone, I'm Sandra Lummis. We'll see you soon.